We'll start. Welcome to Please Waste My Time. And this is really a plea more than a talk. Please waste my time. I'm Q from Blue Bastion. We'll talk a bit more about that. But first of all, I want to thank the conference for having me here, second year in a row. Apparently, it did something right. And really glad to see some familiar faces in here, some new faces. And with that, I'll stop wasting time and I'll get to the talk. So as I mentioned, I'm Q. The government name that my parents gave me was Qasim. In fact, my original name was not Qasim. The name that was given to me, people mispronounced it, so my mom didn't like that, so she gave me a new name. People still can't pronounce. So I just go by Q now. All right? That's a true story, by the way.
Qasim like awesome.
Qasim like awesome. That is true. That is true. And it's not based on what I am. So I'm director of RVAsec at Blue Bastion. I run a team of hooligans over here. We do some really fun stuff. And before joining Blue Bastion, I was running the pen test team at Cigna. I've done a lot of work in healthcare field. I've had some fun time getting DA in healthcare. I also was a HIPAA high trust assessor, which really informed my thinking around giving risk ratings and criticality to findings. I also have played the role of CISO and associate CISO in the past. I teach quite often. I used to teach at Black Hat and Georgia Tech for a while. Now I do a lot of teaching at B-Sides conferences. And focus a lot on the dry side of hacking. What I mean by that is the business side. I like to, as much as I like to get around the EDR, as much as I like to pen test AD, I also like to think things from the business perspective, because that is where the change will come from. We can go and tell the business, you got DA. It doesn't mean shit to them. It's gotta be in the business speak. And 10 years in pen testing, and I'm still trying to figure out if I'm a hacker or imposter. And if one of you figures out, let me know what the secret to that is. What I do know is we freaking rocked RVAsec. This is the fourth presentation from Blue Bastion. And this is a double blind, the CFP, so I'm so freaking proud of us. That's Ross over there giving his talk on improvisation and improv for hackers. That is Akil gave his talk on mindfulness earlier, put me to sleep. And that's Luke talking about apples to apples, kind of spilling the beans on how pen testing, scoping is happening and what's good, what's not in the environment. So we do a lot of community outreach. We do work a lot in the community and love to go out and present and talk and give ideas. I often tell my clients, just give us a phone call. If you want to talk pen testing, just give me a phone call. We'll talk pen testing. We're not going to bill you for that because that's how much we love talking about pen testing. So, why waste my time? Me, as a hacker, as a pen tester, as a red teamer, why would you want to waste my time? I was performing a red team engagement against a client of ours. Blue Bastion does both blue and red teaming. That client of ours was also a client of our SOC as a service, where we had deployed the detection response tooling there and all that. And I was doing a red team engagement, and I started getting really worried, because I saw Windows Server 2003 exposed to the world. The LDAP port and the SMB port were both exposed where I could interact with it. And part of me is really excited. I'm like, this is game over. This is friggin' awesome. And the other part of me goes, holy crap, this is bad. I need to call the client. I need to tell them this is really bad. What the heck are you guys doing in here? And before I did that, I gave up a call to Corey, one of our VPs. He runs our blue team. And I go, Corey, look, I'm working with this client, doing this pen test, and I see Windows Server 2003 exposed to the world. This is messed up, dude. Like, what the heck's going on? We gotta call them up. And he starts laughing. He just starts laughing. I was like, why are you laughing? I mean, I know this is bad, and everybody's got their way of coping with it. He goes, no, this is a honeypot that you just ran into. Totally broke my heart right there. I was so happy, and all of a sudden I was just like crashed down. So when it comes to red teaming, when it comes to pen testing, we love going after the low-hanging fruit. The threat actors, the true black hats, the ransomware actors, the script kiddies, anybody and everybody loves going after the low-hanging fruit. So what you can do, in addition to spending millions on Splunk and spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on EDRs and all that fun stuff, you could write honeypots. You could guide the pen tester, the hacker, the threat actor to wherever you want them to go. You could use this as a way to detect them, to find out what they are doing. We were doing a red team engagement recently. We were being very stealthy, spent a lot of time building tooling to be stealthy, and they figured out we were in the environment within about a week and a half. And the way they figured that out was we interacted with something that was not a real object in AD. And they were not expecting anybody to interact with that. We opened up a file that they were not expecting anybody to open because nobody has any business with this. And we opened it thinking we had just gotten some really cool data. We knew how much the CEO was making in that company. And turns out it was just a honeypot. So you could use the deception to implement detection and response. And you could also use it for misinformation and misdirection. What I mean by that is we are going to get hacked. There will be a pen test of your environment. The difference is, did you pay for it before or after? The difference is, do you get a report or do you get a news story? Right? There will be a pen test. But can you direct that attacker to somewhere else? Can you direct them to an area, to a path where you want to learn from them, you want to waste their time, and then they think they've got to win, and what you instead have is more indicators of compromise you can utilize for threat intelligence. If you want to learn pen testing, or if you are an aspiring SOC analyst, you could use these methods to learn how others are doing things. Spin up your own honeypot. In fact, Ronnie was talking about one he set up recently. He's one of our SOC analysts, and he's been kind of watching some of the traffic. He's got Outlook Web Access Server as a honeypot, and threat actors are attacking it, password spraying, they're doing the exchange exploits, and he's kind of seeing what kind of traffic is coming. He's looking at the post request and seeing what payloads are being used. So you can learn by watching others what they are doing. So you can do a lot of things for wasting my time. You can learn a lot from it. You can do a lot with it. And I feel like I'm wasting my time and your time right now, so I'm going to move on. And before we get to why waste my time, there's something there's a baseline I want to set. I want to make sure the things I'll be talking about, we all have similar understanding of those things. And secondly, I want to talk about why sometimes it is better to just set up honeypots. Why honeypots are often necessary more than just a nice thing to do. It's because of how difficult it is to secure the enterprise environments. And I did something similar last year, so forgive me if there's some repetitive stuff in there, but I want to make sure we have the same baseline. Whenever we talk about name resolution, there is something in here that gives us an easy domain admin. So much so, I remember 6-7 years ago, sitting in our Atlanta office, we were joking about this, how this is what people think all the pen testing is. In fact, this is still something that works. In name resolution, we are taught in school, you're going to ask the domain name server, hey, DNS, do you know where something is? And the DNS says, yep, here it is. Or DNS says, I don't know. And that's it. In reality, your Windows box is asking everybody in the environment, hey, do you know where that share is? Do you know where google.com is? Linux does this using Avahi and MDNS. Windows does it using MDNS, LLMNR, NBNS. Mac does this using MDNS. In fact, we were troubleshooting something recently where one of my teammates' Google TV was showing up. on my packet capture on my laptop. We're like, what in the world is going on? And after some packet captures, looking at some things, we go, oh, we are both connected to VPN. We're both VPN'd into the same environment. When Windows sends these broadcast multicast name resolution requests, it sends it on every single network adapter. So Windows is sending the broadcast multicast name resolution for your Google TV on the VPN adapter also, which I am receiving. So if you are a pen tester that is using VPN to connect to your client's environment, they may be learning a lot about your network than you might realize. Problem with this is you're asking everybody, hey, do you know where my share is? When Windows responds to a request like this, and you try to access the file share, Windows wants to do authentication. That is generally done using NetNTLM. Those are authentication hashes. It's a challenge response protocol. Microsoft is saying they're going to decommission it. They're no longer going to develop NetNTLM. I was surprised they were still developing it. I was surprised they were still adding more vulnerabilities to it, but apparently they were. One person got that. So when I respond and I say, I am the share you're looking for, your system is going to send me your hashes. That is the exploitation of broadcast multicast name resolution. What that looks like on the attacker's end is we've got responder running. That black screenshot with gold yellow text, that is responder. It is receiving the hash because it responded and said, I am the HR share, come and talk to me. I can take that hash and I can crack it. On something like in Alienware, you can do this in 1 billion guesses per second. So your 12-character password, your 8-character password, we can get through that pretty quickly. Simply by responding, we are getting your hashes, simply by listening to the network. Another way to get those hashes is Outlook tracking pixels. So tracking pixels, we know from marketing teams, they will send a tracking pixel on email to know if you open the email because Outlook or your email client will pull that tracking pixel. And that tracking pixel is pulled from marketing team's web server. What if instead of a web server, it was a UNC path? It was a path to a file share, which in reality was responder. What if there was responder listening on the other end of that tracking pixel? You will get that person's hash. We were having a lot of trouble getting into this client's network. It was Friday, 4 p.m. We're supposed to stop testing at 5. And we're talking about how difficult the test is going, don't know what the heck to do. And then somebody goes, have you sent them a tracking pixel? They did say, do whatever you can. So we sent a status email to our client point of contact, who was the IT manager and the domain admin. Hey, we haven't gotten anywhere. We got about an hour left. We're going to try one more thing, see if that works. If that works, we may get somewhere. If it doesn't work, we'll move on to reporting. Good job. And that thumbs up was coming from responder. And we got that person's hash. We got the DA's NetNTLM hash, and that was game over from there. Now, this works very well on the internal networks. On the external network, you run into 2 issues. One, hopefully, outbound SMB is blocked. If that is not blocked, that may be a finding on your report. Secondly, a lot of ISPs are blocking port 445 now. So this may or may not work for you, but it's a pretty fun way of getting the hash. Similar thing can work with Microsoft Word documents also. So once we got that person's hash, they were using a really strong password. It was about, later they told us, 32 characters. So there was no way we're going to guess that. We also only had 1 hour to guess that password because the pen test ended at 5 p.m. So instead of trying to crack that password, we relayed their hash. In Windows environments, if you are not utilizing SMB signing, if you're not requiring SMB signing, when you get that hash from broadcast multicast protocols, from tracking pixel and Outlook or whatnot, you can relay that hash. You can take it from one person and go to other servers, other users, workstations, and say, hey, I'm Qasim, log me in. It's like you took my badge and you started walking out to everybody else and pretended to be me, okay? Which you'll have to also do the accent, so good luck with that. Yeah, you can try. So in this case, we're taking the hash from 10.100.1.3 from the user FileMaker. We're relaying it to other boxes. We relayed it to 1.4, and this user was local admin, so we dumped SAM hashes. So lack of SMB signing is another thing we see in corporate environments that is the default. We, in fact, and every pen testing company generally has this, the very first thing we do is we set up a pipeline where we have responder running, listening for broadcast multicast requests, responding to them, and whenever it gets the authentication hash, you use NTLM RelayX to relay it. And that pipeline generally becomes a 10-minute DA. Windows 11 is going to make this a requirement where SMB signing will be required. Although SMBv1 was going to be decommissioned a long time ago, we're still seeing that a lot. So I think we still have our jobs for a bit. Kerber hosting is another thing that makes it difficult for you to secure the enterprise environment. We have service accounts, named accounts, user accounts with service principal name set. Have you ever installed MS SQL Server in your network? Your account has an SPN now. Quite often, we will go into client environments and we'll find the administrator user, the domain's administrator user has a service principal name of MS SQL Service / SQL Server 01 or SQL Server 02, whatever server might be. It's because they use that account to install SQL Server. And the moment you do that, SQL Server adds a service principal name on your account. So whenever you have a service principal name, we can do Kerber hosting at that point. Basically, in Windows environments, you have either NetNTLM for the remote authentication, or you have Kerberos. Kerberos is ticket-based. You go to a county fair, you go to a state fair, you get that admission ticket that authorizes you, authenticates you to be at that fairgrounds. That is your ticket granting ticket. Then you want to eat funnel cake. You want to eat fried Oreos, which was a mind-boggling thing for me as an immigrant coming to the US. I was like, wait, what? You can fry Oreos? Man, that is awesome. So it's about 2 p.m. You want to eat funnel cake, you want to ride Ferris wheel, you want to make use of services in the fairgrounds. You have that admission ticket, your TGT, ticket granting ticket, but now you need a service ticket. You need permission to ride the Ferris wheel. You pay for that. That is TGS, ticket granting service ticket. So in Windows environments, when you log onto your computer in the morning, you get a TGT, ticket granting ticket, authenticates you into Windows environment. Then you want to access a file share. You want to interact with LDAP. You want to query something out of a SQL service. You get a service ticket for that called TGS. That service ticket is encrypted with the service account's password hash. Meaning, if you installed MS SQL Server, resulting in your admin account getting a service principal name, your admin account is now a service account, I can go and get its ticket, service ticket for admin account, service ticket for any account that has a service principal name. I crack that ticket, I have that account's password now. How many of us are using passwords for service accounts that we can remember the password? If you can remember the password for your service account, you are using the service account wrong. Service account is supposed to be in the background. Quite often we see terrible passwords for them. Service accounts are also added to domain admins so that Kerber roasting becomes an easy path to DA. We get domain user, we Kerber roast the network, we find a bunch of accounts that are service accounts that have bad passwords. Maybe it took us a week to crack that password. Hey, it was still DA. Okay? We would totally spend time on that. So that's Kerber hosting. Another thing we do quite often is pass the hash. We dumped SAM, we got your local NT hashes, we use them as is to log on to other devices. Your local admin has the same password everywhere. Because Windows does not use salting for NT hashes, for LM hashes, that hash is always going to be the same for the same password. So in a pen test, I'm just going to grab that hash and I'm going to spray it across the network. I'm going to light up your SIM. And if that works, I now have local admin on a bunch of boxes. This attack we see quite often, even in real threat scenarios too, because not many orgs are using laps. Pass the ticket. If Microsoft fixed the pass the hash issue in 2016, the way they fixed it was you can no longer pass the hash if that user whose hash you're using is not local admin, or that user is not domain user. You cannot pass the hash. Meaning, you can only pass the hash for non-domain, non-local admin users. Well, who gives a shit about them? I want to pass the hash for local admin. I want to pass the hash for domain user. So that still works, but that is getting detected quite often. So we moved on to pass the ticket. Let me pull the ticket granting ticket from LSAS, from the local security authority process on Windows as local admin, and I'm just going to inject that ticket elsewhere and become that user. Okay. This is something that EDRs will maybe detect the pulling of the ticket from LSAS, but when it comes to detecting the use of this, you're probably going to need a SIM. Same thing with pass the hash, because you've got to be able to look at the anomaly of that traffic. Oh, this is my favorite. In fact, just last week, one of our senior consultants gained access to a client environment and got access to the OneNote that the IT manager is using. And that OneNote not only had the IT passwords from past 6 years, not only had the network diagrams and IT documentation, also had their personal information like their wife's password. And we see this. We see PHI in text files. I have seen passwords.xls files which have one line is username, one line is the password, one line is the URL it works at, one line is a secret question and secret answer. IT stores stuff all the time in network shares like this. My favorite one, though, was I found KeyPass database, the password manager's database. It was encrypted, though. It was sitting on a network share. But the encryption key was in a text file sitting next to it. And the KeyPass installer was also in the same folder. So they were very helpful. This also makes it difficult for us to secure the enterprise environments. So we have default configurations. We have bad passwords. We have bad practices that make it difficult for us to secure the enterprise environment. So how the heck, then, do you waste my time? I do still watch reruns of Friends every now and then. Every time you're in a hotel room at night, there's gonna be Friends rerun on TV. They've canceled some really good shows just to be able to rerun Friends. I'm tired of Rachel and Ross. Anyway, so how do you waste my time? We think back to those misconfigurations. We think back to the attacks that we are performing, the pen tester is carrying out in your environment. What if you dangled candy in front of them using honey users? So what you do is you create a real user with real password, with password being changed every 90 days or every 60 days, like you have in your organization already. And the password is maybe not too difficult, but not too easy. So don't make it password 1, maybe make it organization name 2024, exclamation point at the end, because that exclamation point at the end makes it really, really secure. 2 people got that. So the honey user, now we're gonna go after it in 2 different ways. One is when we do our enumeration, we're gonna find that user. Maybe we ran Bloodhound and we saw that user. Okay? Maybe we ran get 80 users in PowerShell, get domain users in PowerView, we saw that user. There is an interaction with that user that should not happen. Bloodhound will pull all information about that user, every single field it can. So what if there were some fields that your typical accounts, typical tools do not look for? You set a field like that and see if somebody is looking for that field. Is somebody interacting with a user that nobody should be interacting with? That is you detecting an attacker now. Especially if that user starts logging on. That is 100% accurate detection of a malicious user in the environment. No human is using that, but all of a sudden, that users start showing activity. They start logging on to different devices. So we've been caught with this in the past, where we thought we had gotten some really good user. We had gained access. We were so excited. And then we got a phone call from the client, hey, got you. So that was a fun one. Now, you could, just to make this more realistic, you could have that user log onto a device periodically. You can have a remote desktop session, or you could just do a scheduled task that CDs into / computer name, and that will create a logon session to that device. And our Bloodhound, our automated tools like GetNet User, for example, or Find User or something like that in PowerView, they'll see that and they'll report on it. So we think that user is real and it's logging onto a device. We go after that device. Maybe that device itself is also a honeypot. That's the device where you monitor for more activity. You could have these domain joined. I would suggest these being domain joined objects because that makes them more real. That also makes them more dangerous though. So don't go and start implementing these because Qasim told you so, because Qasim takes no responsibility. That's what my lawyer told me to say. Saul is a good dude though. One person got that. It's only that table that gets my jokes. So making it a domain joined device, making a domain user makes it more difficult for you to secure it. At the same time, it makes it more real and juicy for us. So it's something where you have to give it a balance. You have to monitor them. There are ways in AD where you can give somebody a lot of privileges, at the same time limit them to only logging onto certain devices at certain times. So you could use those things to protect it further. This doesn't really cost any extra money. You could just manually do this. There are some tools that do make it easier, but you can just manually do this. So we got some honey users. What if we also have a honey service principal name? This is a service account I was talking about earlier that you can Kerberoast. Nobody should be requesting a service ticket without having some sort of authentication to the domain already. So this results in two indicators of compromise. One, somebody requested a service ticket for a service account that nobody should interact with. And two, well, which user requested that? Either the user is malicious or the user is compromised. Okay? So you could have a service account that looks real, maybe it is real, logs onto maybe some real device, has a service principal name set, and watch for somebody to interact with it. That interaction would result in that detection. You could be watching Windows Event Monitor, I think it's security event logs in AD, and watch for somebody requesting a ticket for it. That is event ID 4769. Failure code 0 is going to mean it was successful, so the request was successful, the ticket was created. Because service accounts are generally juicy for us to go after, they generally have some good access. And because password cracking on these happens offline, that password doesn't have to be too easy. It could be something that makes me 10 hours of cracking to get it. You know, you just wasted more of my time, made me more unhappy and angry. But then after the pen test, I'll be happy because you become more secure. In addition to deception, a detection idea, majority of the pen testing tools, when they do Kerberoasting, they request an RC4 ticket because that is easier to crack. Well, you could have AES tickets only in your environment and watch for somebody requesting an RC4 ticket. That would be a detection there. Okay. This is a tool I built recently. We built recently. I and ChatGPT, one of us did most of the work. Client had asked, hey, you guys come in all the time in our environment. We fixed broadcast multicast name resolution, and you still get it somehow. What if there was a way for us to detect you? And we had seen this in a client's environment where they knew we had used responder. There's a video from IPSec that has similar code, because in fact, I built a tool based on IPSec's code. What this tool does, it sends out a broadcast multicast name resolution request. This is simply resolve-DNS in PowerShell. Resolve-DNS commandlet will do this. You run this tool on a Windows box that does not have broadcast multicast name resolution disabled. It's a PowerShell tool. You run it. There's a few options in here. One, you are sending out the broadcast multicast name resolution. Anytime somebody responds, this tool will alert you that somebody responded to this. So if you're sending out a broadcast multicast name resolution request for something that does not exist, but somebody responded, that's likely a responder running in that environment. Okay? But secondly, because we're talking about wasting time, there's a spew creds option in this, which will send out a netNTL hash. And you can make that password as difficult as you'd like, because now you're wasting that hacker's time cracking that hash, especially if you have SME signing this required everywhere. So there's a few options I put in this for logging, and it's, as I mentioned, it was collaborative work, so if something doesn't work, it's the other person's fault, which is ChatGPT, so take it up with them. Logging-wise, it's got a text file, JSON output, and Windows event output too. One of our clients is utilizing this, and they're monitoring Windows event viewer output. So anytime there is a log from this, that generally means there's somebody malicious in the environment. So fun tool. There's a few other ones that you can utilize. You could run this via scheduled task. Canary tokens. This is something that you should bookmark. This is a website you should utilize in your personal life also. If you utilize this at work, make sure you buy their appliance to support them. So Canary tokens is going to give you pre-built honeypots. For example, you can have it give you a document, a PDF doc or a Word doc that has a tracking pixel in it. You rename it something like 2024 salary plan. You rename it passwords.xls, passwords.docx or whatever you'd like, and you upload it to a network share. Because there's a tracking pixel in that, that tracking pixel reaches out to Canary tokens, and then Canary token alerts you, hey, somebody opened this doc, and this is their public IP address, this is their user agent, whatever it might be, and you just found one of two things. Either there is a threat actor in your environment, and or you have somebody snoopy. You have somebody who's snooping around who is an authorized user, but they are doing something that may be bordering maliciousness. Maybe they are just being curious, and they want to see what else is out there. So this could help you with DLP. This could help you with insider threats. They have a lot of different documents, a lot of different tools that you can deploy. One of the ones I like is monitoring sensitive commands. If you want to catch anybody who got OSCP, CEH, PNPT, CRTL, alert on who am I. Alert on the command who am I, and you're going to find us. Okay? Because as I mentioned, the very first slide, am I a hacker? Am I an imposter? We don't know. So we get on a box, the first command we run is who am I. For example, for my personal desktop, I use the AWS keys that I've dropped. And if those keys get used at any point, I'm going to get an email from Canary tokens. Hey, somebody just used this. So really good, really useful website. Fake password vault. What if you populated a KeyPass database with usernames and passwords and information, some of that real, some of that is not real, and you put that in a network share? You could use something like this for when the attacker gains privileged access, when they can access IT shares, when they can access IT's notebooks. You can use something like this to misdirect them or to detect them. Now, you could also use ChatGPT or another AI to just write documentation. I know how much we all love writing documentation, so you could use AI for that. Or if you had a college project that you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, turn that into a corporate document with a different title and just put that up there in OneNote, for example, and see if the threat actors follow that along. I'm really going to hate it when you all start doing this and you're wasting my time. There's few ways to do this. So the threat actor has gained local admin. One of the first things they'll do is they're going to try and dump LSAS. There are a few ways you can dump LSAS, some loud, some not so loud. One of my favorite ways is telling Windows Diagnostics utility, hey, LSAS just crashed. can you give me the memory dump so I can diagnose it? And Windows error fault or diagnostic utility will go, oh, here's the LSAS dump, go and use it. What if you had a fake credential in there? So PowerShell Empire Framework has a commandlet called invoke new honeyhash.ps1. It's a PowerShell module that you can run. Or, easier way, create a local admin account on multiple boxes, give it the same password on those boxes, and then disable that account. When we do SAM dump and LSAS dump, it does not tell us if the account is active or not, if the account is enabled or disabled. So we're going to try to use that. You could use this, that disabled account or fake hash, to try and monitor our activity to detect us. Again, maybe that account is enabled on certain boxes. Maybe those are the boxes where you want the attacker to end up, because you can then further analyze their activity. That is where you're truly monitoring everything they're doing. Maybe those are the boxes where the wallpapers make fun of the attacker. So that's another way you could waste our time. All right? I think that's about it. Anybody notice what the theme of the talk was other than wasting time? Anybody watch Loki? Oh, we got 2 people, 3 people, yay. So that's the talk. I'm Qasim from Blue Bastion Security. Thank you for coming in and spending some time with me and listening to me ramble on about ways you can make my job more difficult. One thing I will say as I ask for questions, one question often comes up: how do you balance wasting a pen tester's time and wasting away the money you paid them to do the pen test? Well, don't wait 10 hours for them to figure out it's a honeypot. Maybe after you've detected them in a honeypot, wait about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how long you want to wait for them to cry. And then you tell them, hey, that's a honeypot, you're wasting your time in it, go somewhere else now. If you watched Luke's talk earlier, he talked about positive measures, and then make that pen tester put that in the report. Hey, I was detected, and here's a screenshot of that detection. So you have the positive measures in the report talking about the good things you're doing. Okay. So any questions for me, or any other ideas, any stories you have about wasting time? Yeah.
Just a plug for John Strand and Paul Asmodorian's book, Offensive Countermeasures, The Art of Active Defense. If you're looking for a place to find other ideas that are in alignment with your talk, it's a really great book. It's on Amazon. It's cheap.
The Art of Offensive Countermeasures. Yeah, that's a good book.
Yeah.
It really expands on this stuff, has a lot more than what I just talked about. Any questions, comments, anything else before we wake you all up? Yeah.
You mentioned the balance of time, but also how much time should you spend on creating these honeypots?
That's a good question. How much time should you spend on creating these honeypots? I would say, before we think about time, start with just one honeypot. Get used to it, have good practice with it, understand how it works, understand how you will monitor that honeypot, how you will respond to that honeypot. Tailor the alerts so you don't get false positives. So you only get the alerts of things that need to wake you up from sleep and go and fix something or kick a threat actor out. And then you add more of these honeypots in the environment. As far as the time goes, I can't necessarily answer that for you without knowing your environment. What I would say is, I'm deploying a honeypot is not a good excuse at work to stop doing work. So balance it somehow, I don't know. It's a good question though. What else, people? I've been told I got 10 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff, hopefully will not work in newer versions of Windows Server and Windows 11. I say hopefully because I don't know if I trust Microsoft. I don't know if I trust that we will actually deploy the latest and greatest in our environments. We often have reasons for backward compatibility. We often have reasons to have older technology in the environment. Had a client a long time ago, it was a hospital, that's a long time ago, it was 2017, and they were running an MS-DOS robot in their environment. For those of you who are young, MS-DOS was an operating system back in the day when our cell phones were as heavy as the new iPhone. How the technology comes around. So they were not replacing it because the cost of replacement was about $10 million. And this is a nonprofit hospital. They don't have $10 million. So there's often reasons to have old technology, but yeah, Microsoft is trying to get rid of net and TLM. They're going to make it so you have Kerberos proxies to facilitate that out-of-bound sort of authentication that net and TLM can do, which makes me happy because now I'm going to have more Kerberos vulnerabilities. Okay. All right, folks, thank you for your time. I'll be around if you have any questions. Thanks.